Kuma is Vegapunk. Let's start there. All right. I'm going to jump straight into this now. So I just thought about this after reading 1064, and I was like, I love this idea. So I'm going to fucking run with it for a while. Don't ask me why I stumbled that. I don't know. Probably drank too much water. Couldn't swallow all at once. But yeah, let's run with this. Vegapunk is Kuma, right? So I have a few reasons why. I'm just going to start listing them off. First of all, I was thinking about, how we know they're both, even if, right, they're both with the revolutionaries, I feel like that stacks my opinion even harder, right? Because if you think about it, Vegapunk has been all about cloning, and he got Kuma to agree to clone him first. And you could say, all right, they used Bonnie in some regard to, like, manipulate him into letting them, clone him or whatever. And that's why. But I think what happened was, okay, whatever, Kuma, either we have Vegapunk cloned himself and Vegapunk used his original body. Let's say Kuma was his original body, hypothetically, right? And he cloned that multiple times. And in order to, like, infiltrate the government, he had made himself a new body, which is the quote unquote original Vegapunk that has the story about how he helped the island Frankie was on, and he grew up there. And that some of that could be true there. He could have migrated to the Sorbet Kingdom and become king that way. He could have done different things. But we know he's into cloning, and they're both part of the revolutionaries. And Kuma was so, like, agreeable with Vegapunk. He had so many cybernetic parts. But on top of that, and I know Vegapunk is now considered a revolutionary, but he was able to do Kuma was able to do generally whatever he wants. He was so willing to make himself a mindless cyborg. I feel like that it was Vegapunk experimenting on himself, and he had the Seven Stella, right, as a backup, but his original body was Kuma, right? Vegapunk to me is Kuma, because it would make sense as well, because I feel like if Vegapunk and Kuma were separate people, Bonnie would know more about it, because I feel like they'd have to disclose to her, like, this is what I'm doing, and Kuma would be more like, you need to be okay with this. There's a reason I'm doing it. You wouldn't hide. But if they're the same person, they wouldn't want Bonnie getting involved in the situation where she has information that the government might want to slip up, and if she slips up, he might be outed in that sense, right? And this is a real, like, out there idea. I want it to happen because it'd be fucking cool if, like, it turns out Kuma and Vegapunk are the same person, and it would make sense because think of his original pacifista elements in every single story we have about, like, mad scientists and stuff like that. They always experiment on themselves first, or animals or themselves, right? And think about how, for example, Kuma got caught up with the government and didn't get out immediately, because the likelihood is if he was part of the revolutionaries, he wouldn't get caught that easily. He would have done something like Ivankov. He wouldn't have immediately died, because Ivankov didn't immediately die, and they all know she's, like, the right hand man of Dragon, right? Like, Ivankov's, like, second in command besides, well, Sabo is, but, like, Ivankov really is. But, like, that's my thing, right? Kuma, so he used that to be able to experiment on himself again, in a sense, right? Vegapunk, he was able to experiment on himself and try out new things he probably couldn't have done with other people. He knew his own body well enough so he could, like, he knew his own DNA, he knew everything about himself, so he didn't have many limits and research to do, and it would have been handy that way, right? I just think it'd be a cool idea, because we see Bonnie talking about how, oh, Vegapunk is the worst, he did this to my father, and to figure out, like, it was all him in the first place, that he was my dad, and it was, he used his own body to clone and do research for the revolutionaries at the end of the day. All this is, now we know if he's talking to Dragon. Now, hypothetically speaking, this could all be wrong, right? I talked about how he could be a revolutionary. This could all be bullshit, and he's just like, before he dies, he's like, all right, Dragon, we need to talk. I need to tell you something, right? And maybe he was talking to Dragon briefly, but he might not be connected to it, in which case this theory is all bullshit. But I just think the idea that Kuma and Vegapunk are the same person would be fantastic, because all the shit Bonnie's given to Vegapunk, all like, she did this to my father, the reaction she would have when she found out that Vegapunk is her dad, like, it's her dad, you know what I mean? And why, and all this is revealed, and maybe she might try and quote unquote team up with the government this arc to try and take down Vegapunk at some point, because she's like, no, you did this to my father. I need to free him. I need to make him safe again. And she gets frustrated like that, right? And it would also make sense because if Vegapunk was Kuma or vice versa, right? The idea that they would let some revolutionary into the government with no background checks and they would know nothing about them and stuff like that would be hard to believe. But if you were able to clone yourself and make yourself look different, as we see with like Stella 2, for example, Vegapunk 2, where they look like a woman, it'd be easy to change your appearance, right? And do that. Now, you could say, and the fact they say they're of a special race as well, you know, cloning yourself would mean you'd have more research subjects and maybe, you know, revive the race. Maybe it's a race that the government are scared of, so you don't want to show that off to people. You know what I mean? It's very interesting in that sense, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. Now, again, this is a load of me just talking. I love this theory though, and I'm gonna rock with it until the arc is over, maybe even longer. I do think at this point Vegapunk is Kuma. Let me see what you guys think. I know a lot of what I was going to use was like, oh well, he protected the Sunny. He wouldn't be able to get past government inspection or get that agreed to, unless he didn't have to, because he himself is Kuma. So he could have easily done that without them knowing. And I think it's a grand theory, because then it's like if he does die, he has so many other bodies he can use and transfer his mind to, and we will never know who the original is. And I think it's fascinating to me, right? I don't know what you guys think. I love the idea though. Let me know what you guys think about Kuma being Vegapunk or vice versa. I'm excited to see what happens with this. It's the first thing that popped into my head, so I just wanted to talk about it for a bit, you know? Yeah. Am I talking bullshit? Probably.